The Access VSA Employer Community of Practice, ECoP meeting of May 28, 2026, presented by the Access VSA International Network, a Jean Kennedy Smith Arts and Disability Program. And now, Executive Function in the Workplace by Employment Specialist Linda Hoyt.
I'm Linda Hoyt, and as was mentioned, I'm the program manager for the Autism hiring program here in the Metro DMV area. Our primary areas of focus are Howard County, Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County, and those surrounding. And as I was sharing with Josh at the beginning of this call, we have had a federal grant that funded our program extension to Towson University, who will be continuing beyond that grant into the new year. Go ahead to the next slide. I'm coming to you from Western Howard County and was excited for the opportunity to be here today as I've had opportunity to work with those at the Kennedy Center for interns there, have had some chance to touch base with the Roundabout Theater and Mario's group, and I'm just excited to see employment access and successes across the panel. So I've been an employment specialist after a stint in many years as an occupational therapist. And I throw that in there because I think it comes from the mindset of challenges that limit somebody's abilities and really problem solving and figuring out a way to take what they can't do and make it possible. So applying that to the employment realm for the last couple of decades. We'll go to the next slide. So my perspectives today are brought to you as shared with me from employers and employees. And I think when Cindy came to me with the idea that people were interested in the discussion of executive function, it absolutely is something that reoccurs and comes up regularly. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm excited to be here, and I welcome any questions or opportunities to connect even beyond today. So starting with what executive functioning is, since that's really what we're here to talk about today, we're thinking about it as our brain's management system. It impacts a lot of different areas, as those were noted, and it's an individual's ability to plan, organize, focus, remember, organize impulses, control, and regulate themselves and the environment. So we'll go to the next slide. So it can show up in a lot of different ways. And I think that's something that we have to remember, along with our solutions, is it's not a one size fits all. Each situation brings about a little bit differences, and somebody's issues may arise given one circumstance, and they may be able to control and manage those in another. So it can show up in a variety of ways and circumstances. And those that we're discussing today are what individuals have shared with me as their concerns and their employers have shared with their concerns. So we'll go to the next one, and we're sort of just going to look at each of those different areas, followed by a slide of some suggestions for dealing with it. So if somebody presents problems with task initiation, which is one of those areas that is an executive functioning area, we may see decision paralysis or an inability to get started because they're feeling overwhelmed. They're waiting because they want to be sure. And some are even requiring nagging prompts and high levels of frustration before they can even get started with the task. So going to the next slide, if we were looking at if some of those problems presented, what might we do to kind of assist in that area of challenge? So if we limit the choices, and by that I mean instead of giving them a big notebook or a big binder to choose from, we're kind of narrowing down those choices. We really know our priorities and are letting them make a selection from a limited number of choices. Maybe that's one, two, or three. Breaking things down into really clear and defined steps. And there's a variety of different problem search timers that can be used. And we have to be very clear. I think always it comes down to our communication of expectations. So being clear about what we expect from them. We'll revisit all these things kind of in summation at the end, and we'll see that there's an overlap from a lot of the challenges areas, as well as the solutions that may assist in one area also would assist in another. So if someone's having trouble managing their time, we may see that they're just simply getting lost in thought, and sometimes somebody's hyper focused on an activity so they don't move forward into the next one. They may absolutely miss deadlines because they just disregard that, or they don't keep track of that. They may underestimate how long something takes. And some simply miss meetings or arrive late, always kind of running behind. So if those challenges present, we might be able to think of a few different ways to assist somebody. It could be using timers, schedule blocking, and by that I mean if somebody isn't focusing or moving forward, a lot of times, and I'm sharing with you from, again, employment sites that vary wildly. But some people need that focus block of time, say, to focus on their email. And during that time, they're not taking input in other areas. So schedule blocking for whatever the primary tasks are, different reminders, and a lot find it helpful to use the Outlook calendar. So that might be as simple as when the next task assignment is due. If it's entered onto their Outlook calendar, then you get those pop-ups to show when the next one is coming up. And you can kind of set the parameters on that as well for when you want those reminders. And those working at home have utilized Alexa and other phone apps and timer management too to kind of keep them moving forward in tasks. So looking ahead at the next challenge area, which is organization and planning. So all these again fall under that executive function. So somebody may be disorganized, not things are all over the place. Their area is a mess. They're not keeping track of their materials. They're not prioritizing what needs done and consequently having mistakes and errors with their work. So in those challenge areas, if we move to the next one, there's some ideas. And again, you'll see some overlap. So having accommodations and systems in place can help reduce cognitive overload and improve efficiency. And some of those might be routines, checklists, using different color coding systems and digital planners, as well as paper and pencil planners. So any of those sorts of things can reduce that overload and organizational mayhem. All right, if we move ahead, another challenge area is working memory. So somebody may present with a variety of those things, such as what I've listed there, forgetting what to do next, not keeping track of multiple steps, trouble switching from one thing to another, or resuming when there's an interruption, or completing things just incorrectly. Just some examples of way that area may show up in their work. So if we move to the next, so we want to remember that this is a reflection of cognitive bandwidth and not a reflection of intelligence. Use systems and structure and external supports to aid them with memory lapses. So this could be repeating instructions, written instructions, visual aids, and note-taking tools. So in that case, sometimes it's transcription tools. I say we have a lot of clients or a lot of job employees that will say yes, they understand, but I find it usually helpful to ask them to repeat back and clarify that they have an understanding. Don't just assume that yes, I've got it really means that they've got it. We'll go ahead and go to the next since we're keeping this short. Attention regulation is another common challenge area. So they're not staying focused or they get started with their work and then wander into something else. People get frustrated, overwhelmed, and maybe impulsive. So if we go to the next, attention regulation challenges can be supported through structure, environmental adjustments, and external systems that reduce the challenge area. So they don't rely on internal focus. They can put some of that reliance on external support systems. So by negating some of the external noises in the environment can help keeping things structured and reoccurring. And there's a lot of different focus apps and electronic or digital planning systems that would also assist in this area. All right. Cognitive flexibility is another area where somebody just really is stuck on one way of doing things, and it's only one way of doing things. And this can really cause challenges when things have to move fast or modify within their workspace. And they can get upset and sometimes in a very hostile way when something must be different and it can't be the way that they were planning in their head or the way they were used to doing. So there's some examples of way it may show up. And if we go to the next slide, to support cognitive flexibility and challenges, you can make things more predictable. We can structure communication. We can allow time between transitions. And by giving alternatives, we give some control back to them when things are changing. Advance notice or preview of changes can help. And having some predictability with routine flow. So we aim to provide clarity and reduce unnecessary variables to help people adapt and perform at their best. So I think sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I know in the stage environment and in your environment, that isn't always the case. But we have some routine cadence that we can be predicted by. The morning routine is going to be an assessment of the set. The afternoon is going to look at modifications to the set. So there could be some cadence and a global scope so that there can be some anticipation of the areas where work may be focused during set time periods. And that in and of itself can allow a little greater predictability and acceptability to things, because I know they're not all predictable, especially in your work environments. We go to the next slide. So follow through and task completion is also another area of challenge. That same decision paralysis, so many choices that we just can't get moving or start with anything. Everything is a little bit done and nothing is completed. Starts off strong so that the supervisor walks away, and it seems that things stops when that happens. And consequently, they see an inconsistent productivity. We'll move to the next. So we want to manage these challenges by breaking work into manageable steps, use external systems to track progress, and provide structured guidance and accountability. So frequent check-ins, I like to think, are usually higher at the beginning and then can go down. But if there was some cadence or routine to those, we'll check in at the end of the day or we'll check in at lunchtime. It can help people move forward and know that a checkpoint is coming. Checklists vary. Some like those on their phones, some want it written, and some want them very detailed, and some want them more broad. But keeping track of progress in a system that works for them can really be beneficial, and one that aligns with what the manager expectations are. And again, back to something that was noted at the very beginning, being clear with your communication. You're good. So now thinking about where to start. So we kind of touched on a lot of different areas that we may see as problems areas, and want to think about what's the best way to kind of jump in and tackle those. We can go to the next and kind of talk and think about, generally speaking, I think that open communication is always a great place to start. Most of the people that have present with these challenges in the environments where you're seeing them now, it's not the first time that they've had these challenges. So really talking to people about in the past, what has helped you or what helps you get organized and out the door in the morning. So how can we employ those sorts of strategies in this environment? Or what helps you make sure that your meal is on the table at dinner time and not at 9 o'clock at night? So kind of looking at what has assisted them in other areas of their life and making that correlation. We want to bring those things into this environment and see you have the same success that you have there. So there are a number of things that we mentioned in all the slides preceding that there's different kind of visual aids and schedules, color coding, task sequencing, clarified and schedule, and a variety of different reminders and written instructions. So again, what works best for the individual. Moving ahead, there's just some more examples there of what might help. And there's some different apps as well as different kind of schedules and the level of detail that can be used in that. Different sorts of things help one may not be what helps another. And I think that would include all these different organizational strategies and systems and fidgets and moving and noise canceling. So there's just a variety of options. So I think I like to think of it, this is your toolkit and things that you can consider. but kind of get a feel for what that person is like and what works for them, and have this as a kind of a starting point or options to consider in addressing their challenges.
Linda, would you mind reading that out loud for our recording?
Not
That
at
was
all. So efficiency and organizational supports could include things such as visual schedules and self-reporting, task management apps, software, schedule, organize, prioritize, and prompt, task analysis apps, step-by-step text, visual auditory prompts, timers and alarms, both mobile and stationary, focus and concentration apps and extensions, organizers, both physical and digital, a variety of fidgets, and noise canceling headphones can all be options to consider to kind of minimize external distractions and provide some additional organizational support. We can move ahead. Technology supports can be also explored, and we have a lot of great options to consider there. So for task management apps, employees may struggle with staying on a task and managing their times. Tools like To-Do List and My Study Life can help organize tasks, set reminders, and break down large projects into smaller, more manageable steps. Task analysis apps like ChoiceWorks and First Then Visual can be used to create visual schedules, visual timers, and choice boards. And timers and alarms, apps like Time Timer or Alarm can help employees manage time efficiently, especially in situations that require quick change of focus or attention. And I think really when a meeting is held and the general guidelines are established and shared, really help pinpoint those to what are the priorities. And back to those earlier slides where we're limiting choices, keeping the focus, if we can, on the top priorities, and then adding in additional responsibilities as those are completed or progress hits the milestone marks where more can be added. So moving ahead, we'll think about the key takeaways that executive function can impact job success, and the skills can be supported and developed, and we can match strategies to each person's needs, because what presents as executive function or dysfunction reflects a mismatch of executive functioning demands and structured within the workplace or in the work environment. So if we look ahead, we need to remember that not one size fits every person or every situation. So look for different areas of support, be patient, explore the alternatives. I think communication is really a key area again there, and talking with them about what can assist them, where they visualize both their problems and the solution, and know that we're not going to necessarily hit this on the first attempt. And if we go in with that mindset, we will work together to find that solution, and know that we can be honest and work through the challenges to move to this point of solution. And we'll get to the last slide, and just I'm here if there's any questions that I can answer.
The content of this webinar was developed under Grant H421 F240164 from the U.S. Department of Education. Department. The Department does not mandate or prescribe practices, models, or other activities described or discussed in this program. The content of this webinar may contain examples of, adaptations of, and links to resources created and maintained by another public or private organization. The Department does not control or guarantee the accuracy, relevance, timeliness, or completeness of this outside information. The content of this webinar does not necessarily represent the policy of the Department. This webinar is not intended to represent the views or policy of, or be an endorsement of, any views expressed or materials provided by any federal agency. EDGAR 75.620. Presented by the Access VSA International Network, a Gene Kennedy Smith Arts and Disability Program.